Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Today I'm gonna be sharing the sample answers that I have made for this topic, and the title is Describe a piece of international news you recently heard. I've highlighted the useful phrases and expressions, and I hope that you use them so that you can increase your score in your IELTS speaking exam. Always remember that fluency is the most important part in the IELTS speaking. So you should not be speaking in an uncomfortable way. Make sure that when you speak, you sound comfortable, you sound relaxed. If the IELTS examiner notices that you are having a hard time, you are having difficulty in expressing your thoughts and ideas, you will get a low score because it is affecting your fluency. Aside from fluency, make sure that when it comes to vocabulary, you use less common words, idioms, or collocations, and then you need to use a variety of connectives as well. Alright? So when you pronounce English words, make sure that it's clear and you pronounce English words like that of a native speaker. In the IELTS speaking exam, accents don't matter. You can use American accent, Canadian, British, or Australian. It doesn't really matter, as long as you sound like a native speaker, okay? This is the topic, describe a piece of international news you recently heard. And these are the bullet points. You should say what it was about, where and when you heard it, what you were doing when you heard it, and explain how you felt about it. Take note that you don't really need to answer these bullet points in order. In case you miss one bullet point here, don't worry, you will not get a deduction. It won't affect your scores at all, as long as you speak fluently and you are meeting the technical requirements set by the IELTS organization. Okay? So, let us begin. Please read with me and do some shadowing. This is the sample answer. Well, out of all the global news that I've heard recently, I think the news about a mother who rescued her kids was the most touching one. Actually, I love browsing the internet during my free time, but when I saw that news, it really caught my attention. It's all about a fire incident that took place in Turkey, and the fire victims were living on the fourth floor. A middle-aged woman rescued her two kids by throwing them from the window. The news article was saying that she was hesitant at first. However, she was left with no choice, so she just threw her kids from the window. Fortunately, the neighbors were waiting downstairs, and they prepared blankets to catch the kids. I think that was such a brave act. When I read that, I shed some tears in my eyes, and there are many reasons why. First off, that news was so moving. I'm also a mom, so when I am in that situation, I'd probably do the same because I want to save my children as well. In emergency situations, I do everything to rescue my kids. That's why I was so touched when I read that news. Secondly, I was relieved and over the moon because the kids didn't have any broken bones. Luckily, when they arrived in the hospital, doctors didn't find any injuries, and I think it's a miracle. I think the woman showed heroism, and I think she just reminded me that mothers will do everything for their kids. All in all, that news I heard a few weeks ago was really unforgettable. Okay, so I hope that this kind of idea and the sample answer will be of great help to you. Some of my students talk about the corona vaccine, so for them it's a good news. And that is correct, right? It's really a good news. Other students talk about a celebrity, other students talk about a good news in other country. So it can be anything as long as it's an international news. Okay? Now, let us continue. Let's move on to part 3. These are the sample answers. Continue to do some shadowing, okay? But by the way, take note that my students right now are Korean. So, obviously, the subjects here are Koreans. But when you take the IELTS exam in your country, they will change the subject. Okay, so let's begin. How do Korean people usually get news? Well, based on my observation, most Koreans get news by watching TV news programs. Also, some people read online news articles, which I think is more common among youngsters. I think, in terms of newspapers, I think it's kind of obsolete already, and very few people read them. So, in this question, you are going to give ways or methods on how people get news in your country. Right? So this is a very general answer, and you can just change some subjects, of course. Instead of saying, for example, most Koreans, you can say most Indians. Okay? So online news articles. Yeah, in terms of newspapers, so this is a linking phrase. It's kind of obsolete already. So if it's obsolete, it's old, it's no longer produced. Instead of saying kind of, you want to sound like a native speaker, so you can say kinda. All right? So this is an informal expression, of course, kinda. Right? So if you sound like an American or any, native speaker, you will get a high score in IELTS. Okay? Now let us continue to the next sample question or answer, I mean. Which kind of news is more popular, domestic news or international news? I believe that local news is more famous, and it is simply because it's directly related to our lives. Local events have a great impact on our daily activities. However, these days, since society is getting more globalized, I can say that some people are also interested in global news. With the pandemic that's going on in the world right now, a lot of people are concerned with international news. In part 3, you have to give long answers, detailed answers. So it should be around 4 sentences, at least 4 sentences. Okay? Try to use connectives as well, however. This is a good expression with the pandemic that's going on in the world right now. Right? Try to talk about 2 views. So try to talk about domestic and international, which I have done in this sample answer. But you can also talk about, domestic news is more popular or international news. You can choose one. In my case, most of the time, I always prefer to choose 2 so that I can use connectives. Okay? Now let us continue. Do you think children should pay more attention to the news? Well, I think it depends on the news. If the news is too brutal or violent, I guess kids should not see it. If it contains videos of people fighting each other, kids might imitate it and it's harmful to their behavior. However, some news can be seen by children because they are informative. Another sample answer? Yeah, I guess so. I believe that children should have knowledge about the news, and it is mainly because it can help them to understand their surroundings. I think it can make them smart and mature. I believe that they have to face the realities of life. However, there should be limits, since some news contains violence or sexual content. Okay? So, yeah, 2 sample answers. Just choose which is more preferable for you, which is better. Let's move on to the last question. How is the news media changing recently? I think the news media is changing in an enormous way. What I mean by that is almost everyone can make news by recording a video and uploading it on the internet. News companies can easily get the news stories because the public can help them. Also, in the past, people just get news through TV. But these days, news has become more accessible. So I would say that it changed a lot. Because the question is asking you, how is it changing recently, right? So my answer is, it changed a lot. It changed in an enormous way. It is changing in a massive way, right? Okay, so anyways, that would be all. Thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you. Bye.